We talked last time about the covenant that was what was connected with that, oaths, promises, conditions. And God had spoken this covenant to them, and we see through the first part of Jeremiah 11, the words of this covenant in verse 6, the words of this covenant, but in verse 7, it's obey my voice. So there's indeed God speaking. It's his words that people were to obey, and they weren't doing that. And they were turning away from the things of God. So we have a fill in the blank, for those of you who like those. To incline one's ear to God is to hear, is to what? To obey, because we see a negative here. They didn't incline their ear, and they're not obeying. So what's the two distinctions there? They don't even want to listen to what God says so they can put it into practice. They're not listening to him, don't want anything to do, so they're going to do what they want to, so they won't obey his voice. We'll go the kind of least resistance way, and that's the way we'll go, and that's exactly what they were doing, as we see in verse 8. Yet they obey not, nor incline their ear, but walked after what? In the stubbornness of their what kind of heart? It's not good. He's a stubborn child. He's going to have good character. And we might turn that away and say, he's going to stand fast, he's stubborn. But stubbornness to do evil, when you know you need to be listening to what is good, and they had inclined their ear not to listen, that is a big problem. I brought upon them all the words of the covenant which I commanded them to do, but they did what? They did them not. I brought on them all the words of the covenant through his prophets. Why don't you share it with me? Don't bring it on me. Obligation. And it's coming from God, and we are obligated to obey God, or we will suffer the consequences. So those of you coming, we're in Jeremiah, the 11th chapter, and we're in our lesson 4, and you'll have them on the board if you haven't got an outline. Any thoughts along that line about obeying God's voice? This covenant is not words of this covenant. It's my voice. That is promising things, and we know that the people, they had an oath that we're going to do exactly what you said when they came out of land of Canaan. But we see now under the kingships and after the judges and all of those things, they've turned completely away from God, and that's Jeremiah's day. All right? Question number 3. What is God going to do to his fair green olive tree? And that's right. And it will be broken. Verse 14 says, here's how bad it's gotten. Therefore pray not for this people. Let that sink in. Don't pray for this people. They say, my people. He'll come back and talk about his people in our lesson today. But pray not for this people, neither lift up cry nor prayer for them. Why? I will not hear them in the time that they cry unto me because of their trouble, or some passages have evil. It's trouble, and therefore it's evil if it's on me. It may be trouble for you, but it's evil to me because it's going to hurt. There's nothing good about it. And the point is that there comes the point, Jeremiah, I don't want you praying for these people, but it's a vulnerable moment. They're crying out, help. What's God doing? I'm not listening. They have their moments. And why I think hell will be comprised of people with a weeping and gnashing of teeth. They had their moments, especially those who've known the way of truth and depart from it. They've known that way, and now I don't want you to do intercessory prayer for those people, period. And he gives us the reason for that. They're going through, and we've got to realize it wasn't annihilation here. It's not like the hell was going to be like at the end, but there'll be no intercessory prayer working there that way, either crossing your heart and say, hey, pray for their soul, get out of purgatory, whatever. It's the end. Destruction is coming upon them. This was going to be destruction upon the people, Jerusalem, but there'll be a remnant that comes. Hope they'll learn their lessons. And that's what Jeremiah is looking forward to it as well. But don't say a prayer for them. What hath my beloved to do in my house? Seeing he hath wrought lewdness. So there's your orgies, maybe connected with idolatry or just idolatry itself. They're forsaking their husband, God. With many, and the holy flesh is passed from thee. What does that mean? He speaks about in my house. That could be his temple, where the presence of God is. That's where they're offering sacrifices to Baal. And they think if they can offer a sacrifice that can pass from them, I'm offering this to the God of Baal, that God's going to be happy with them? No way. No way. When thou doest evil, then thou rejoiceth. We're doing great. They're serving Baal, offering idolatrous gods that can't move, as we studied last time. They can't speak. They can't do anything good or evil. They can't do anything. And that's who you're trusting in. And you're passing this holy flesh. It's holy unto you, O Baal, God. God does not accept that. And what we've learned from our study of the prophets is that when God's people think they can substitute sacrifice for living holy and righteous life, they got another thing coming. It's just noise to me when you sing and play on your instruments of music. It's not worship. You're shedding innocent blood. You're committing fornication. You're not being just with your neighbor. All those things are important with God. Is obedience better than sacrifice? And it's those moments that we realize that that's what's important, obeying his voice. And that leads us to want to offer worship that's pleasing unto him. But they think they can substitute worship for living the life. How many people do that today?
They have the order reversed. They're trying to get repentance first.
Right. That's right. If I go on Easter, Sunday to worship, and maybe Mother's Day, I think he's going to be pleased with me. And yet I'm living like the devil all the time. And we can't do that. And especially God's people, we don't want to be hypocrites along those lines. So that leads us up to verse 16. Jehovah called thy name a green olive tree. Did God really ever do that? David writes a Psalm 52:8, he does it. My green olive tree, it's fair with goodly fruit. That's what it's supposed to sit in my house or among my people. And I just picture, a small plant, but here's a green olive tree. It's fair and goodly. It's fair. It's lively. It's got leaves. It's got goodly fruit. And he says, I called it by thy name, but with the noise of a great tumult he hath kindled fire upon it, and the branches of it are broken. They're going to be consumed up. They're broken. And what's the tumult all about? Who's that pointing to? What's tumult talking about? What's going to happen? That foe from the north called the Chaldeans, that hasty and cruel nation, is going to destroy my people. And yet, from God's perspective, and if we can look at it through the eyes of God, here they're passing the holy sacrifice unto God as they're serving their gods. For Jehovah of hosts, who planted thee, hath pronounced evil against thee, because the evil of the house of Israel and the house of Judah, which they wrought for themselves, and provoking me to anger by offering what to whom? Offering incense. Wow, that must be an odor of a sweet smell to whom? Baal. They're doing their worship, offering their sacrifices. As Jeremiah says, there's more altars to Baal than you have streets in Jerusalem. That's how far they've gone. That's their idol for the land that they live in now. And it was in Judea and in Jerusalem. And that's going to be brought to an end. Because there's going to be what? I'm going to burn. Fires coming upon my fair and lovely and fruit-bearing olive tree. And psalmists will talk about that a lot in the Psalms. Well, question number 4. What did Jeremiah know and not know about God's people? It's kind of an interesting point that he says, well, Jehovah gave me knowledge of it. What it? Well, back to 13, for according to the number of the cities are thy gods, O Judah, and according to the number of the streets of Jerusalem have you set up altars to the shameful thing, even altars to burn incense unto Baal. God helped me know the intensity of just what's happening there in Jerusalem. You know, he's from Ananoth and so forth, but Jerusalem is just 3 miles away. And he's involved in seeing that. So God makes me knowledge of it, and thou showest me their doings, offering incense to Baal. Got more altars built up than they have streets. Must have one almost every corner. But he says, there's something I didn't know. But I was like a gentle lamb, hopping here, hopping there, and he doesn't know where he's going. Where's he going? To slaughter. All you get in the pen now, and we're just going to move along. They hop along. He did not know that he was headed for the slaughter. I knew not that they had devised devices against me, saying, let us destroy the tree with the fruit thereof, and let us cut him off from the land of the what? He's helping God's olive tree, beautiful thing. He's preaching the things of God. Let us destroy the tree, the fruit thereof, and let us cut him from the land of the living. Idea that we're looking at him as a tree, and we're going to cut him down from the land of the living, that his name may be what? No more remembered. How much hatred is it that not only will kill you, but you will not have a legacy running our people? We'll tear down your statue and we'll just break it to pieces because we don't want anybody thinking you're part of our history. Has that happened in our country? Yes. And how much hatred do you have for a man who is involved really in teaching them the way of God? He's telling them this is the consequences of your action. They don't want to hear that. And if you don't want to hear that, we not only want to take you out of the land of living, we don't want your name to ever come up again. That's how much hatred is indeed in people sometimes. So don't underestimate hatred. And don't underestimate that somebody can hate you like that. They can. And especially when you stand for what's right in our lives. And I'm just talking about the preacher, but talking about everybody. Stand what's right. You're going to find all that live godly will do what? Suffer persecution. It just goes with the territory. Accept it, absorb it, rejoice in it. Great is your reward in heaven. All those things help us to overcome that. But this is how bad it was. I didn't know they hated me that much. And I'm going to the slaughter. They really want to kill me. But O Jehovah of hosts, who judgest righteously, who triest the heart, and boy, I'm being tried, Jeremiah said, and the mind, I shall see thy vengeance on them, for unto thee have I revealed my cause. I think that is a wonderful application of Romans 12. Avenge not yourself, but give place to the vengeance of God, for I said, I will take vengeance. Vengeance belongs to God, not for me to return evil for evil. And Jeremiah is doing that. And I think what's wonderful about it, you can pour out your heart to God and tell him how you feel. I'm a gentle lamb led to the slaughter. This is not fair. You know, whatever you want to say about this. I know what kind of people they are, God, because you have revealed that to me. But he's allowing God to have his vengeance upon those who defile him. They're offering their sacrifices to Baal, their incense. And he lets God have his place. Because I have revealed my cause. I've told you what my situation is. And I wonder if we have that personal relationship with God. He wants it with us. We see it through his servants in the Bible, that they have that with God. There is a way of complaining to God in prayer that reverences him, his place, that releases your frustration of how you're being treated or what have you, or what evil seems to be persistent and present and overcoming good, and we're depressed. You can talk to him about it. You can tell him exactly how you feel. God, you took away my mother. I'm angry. And you can pour your heart out to him. But here is a sense that, God, I'll allow you to punish them, but I've delivered unto you my cause. This is how I feel. Now, let me see thy vengeance. Well, it's not me getting evil and poor little me. I feel better because they got what they deserve. It's not personal in the sense of bringing it to him. It's the fact that they have disobeyed God. His vengeance will take care of that. And that's all he wants. Therefore, in verse 21, said Jehovah concerning the men of Ananoth. That's where he was from. God's going to tell him something that shakes him. They seek thy life. Thou shalt not they say it shall not prophesy in the name of Jehovah, that thou die not by our hand. Therefore thus said Jehovah of hosts, behold, I will punish them. The young men shall die by the sword. Their sons and their daughters shall die by famine, and there shall be no remnant unto them. For I will bring evil upon the men of Ananoth, even the year of their visitation. Here's this example in the Bible where the visitation of God is coming in what? Salvation or judgment? Judgment here. They will glorify by seeing your good works. They will glorify God in the day of visitation. That could be a visitation where I deliver you from the city. Or it could be a visitation of bringing judgment upon the unrighteous. So whether that's indeed going to take place at the end of time, He's going to come back and visit us. He's going to bring judgment upon the sinner who hasn't repented. He's going to bring relief and resurrection and redemption and ascension into heaven when he visits that time. So it goes both ways. So how are you going to interpret Peter's thing? They see your good works. They speak evil of you, but they see your good works and glorify God in the day of visitation. Have they might not become a Christian because of you? I think so. Because glorifying God as he casts you into hell, that's kind of a different way of glorifying God. I'm thankful that I believe the gospel. I'm thankful for that person. I spoke evil of them, but they directed me in the right way, and I've turned that way. I will glorify God because of God's grace that was worked through these pilgrims that said, this place is not my home. I'm going to a better home. Would you like to see where I'm going? And that influence can be there. And that tells us also that we're not to be just living our lives and serving God in kind of a personal thing, but we're to be involved in the community. We're to be involved with people around us that need to hear that gospel, so indeed they can glorify God in the day of visitation instead of fear God and gnash their teeth at God or whatever they're going to do as they suffer eternal damnation. So here's what he did not know, and then God adds to it. So what did the men of Ananoth, question number 5, what did the men of Ananoth not want Jeremiah to do? Prophesy in the name of Jehovah. This is what God said. This is God's word, and I'm delivering it to you. They didn't want to hear that any longer. And they're going to want to kill him. But Jehovah says, I will bring, not from my hands, I will use that nation. They will die by the sword. Not by Sodom and Gomorrah rocks coming down upon them. They'll die by the sword. Their young men, their sons, their daughters shall die by famine. That's besiegement that happens to Jerusalem. There shall no remnant unto them, for I will bring evil upon them. That little town of Ananoth, no remnant, but who's going to be still from Ananoth before, where he'll die later? Jeremiah. But they're going to be destroyed. And it indeed is the year of their visitation. And he comments on what he knew and what he didn't know that shocked him. Because what we're about to see, how he talks to God about that. All right? If you go into the 12th chapter, I'm not going. I want to read question number 6. What caused Jeremiah to question Jehovah? What caused that? Okay, that's right. And that's not the first time that's ever happened. Righteous art thou, Jehovah, when I contend with thee, yet would I reason the cause with thee, whether doth the way of the wicked prosper. They're going to be allowed to prosper. Why aren't you doing something about it? Wherefore are all they at ease that deal very treacherously? They don't seem to be bothered by the words that I'm presenting unto them. Thou hast planted them, yea, they have taken root, they grow, yea, they bring forth fruit. Thou art near in their mouth, but what? Far from their heart. Not to me that praising Jehovah, and we can worship Baal too. We can do both. We can compromise with thy holiness, O God. But it's the prosperity of the wicked. They seem to be rooted, they seem to be prospering. And they praise you in the heart. How many churches do that? Praise them in voice and song. When it gets down to how to live, their heart's far from God. What God says distinctively, they don't want any part of that, especially when it interrupts their lifestyle. And there's a lot of people called the people of God that indeed do that. Let's see if okay. We're moving right along. Question number 7. In 12:7, give 3 descriptions of how God viewed his people. So what does it say here? Let me come back, because I want to show you how God reacts to this. Verses 5 through 6 is God answering this, and I don't want to pass over that. If thou hast run with the footmen, back up to, we go back up. Verse 4, how long shall the land mourn, and the herbs of the whole country wither? For the wickedness of them that dwell therein, the beasts are consumed, the birds, because they said, he shall not see our latter ends. Like these things are not going to happen, but there are. If thou hast run with the footmen, and this is God speaking, I think it changes here, and they have wearied thee, then how canst thou contend with the horses? That's interesting how God speaks to Jeremiah after he's contending with him. How come they're prospering? What is he saying? He's pointing to judgment that's coming upon his people. If thou hast run with the footmen, and they have wearied thee, you're complaining about them, aren't you, Jeremiah? You're finding out things that you didn't know of what they want to do. If that's wearied thee, how can you contend with the horses when Nebuchadnezzar comes with his army? It's going to get worse. And you're not going to be able to withstand that. Though in a land of peace thou art secure, yet how wilt thou do in the pride of Jordan? What is the pride of Jordan? What does that mean to you? What's the Jordan? Okay. What do you think you're not going to get in trouble? What do you think the Jordan is? River. Thank you. And we think, well, the pride of, it floods, and you're gonna be engulfed in a flood. Well, that might be true. But I want to look at 2 passages. Look at Jeremiah 49 in verse 19, and see if there's something else connected with the Jordan that might have something to do with pride. In verse 19, he says, behold, he shall come up like a lion from the pride of the Jordan against the strong habitation, for I will suddenly make them run away from it, and whoso is chosen, him will I appoint over it. There is a lion coming out of the marshes of the pride of Jordan when it does flood. But what's coming out of there? It's a lion. Chapter 50 in verse 44. Behold, the enemy shall come up like a lion from the pride of Jordan. Now I know. From the pride of Jordan, a river that runs a lot, gets deep and floods, and the marshy land, there's lions out there. And what do you do when a lion's out there? You run. You run away. Well, the enemy shall come like a lion from the pride of the Jordan against the strong habitation, for I will suddenly make them run away from it. They're going into captivity. So God is saying, here's what's going to happen, Jeremiah. You're upset with the people, I am too. And you found out, I told you they're worshiping false gods. Now they want to kill you. That's what you didn't know. You're just going along wanting to do God's will, and they want to annihilate you from even the memory. And they wear you. What about the enemy that's coming with horses? What about the lion coming out of the pride of Jordan that's going to be there? What wilt thou do in the pride of Jordan when the lion comes? That's what Jeremiah, I think, is meaning. For even thy brethren and the house of thy father, even they have dealt treacherously with thee, even they have cried aloud after thee, believe them not. They speak fair words unto thee. They're going to say, we don't want you to teach in that name, but behind the scenes, they're going to kill you. I know that, Jeremiah. And here's what is going to happen indeed for you and your people still. So he doesn't give him a place for answer, well, this is why I allow them to prosper. He doesn't have to answer that. He said, you stay firm. It's going to get worse. And I will bring judgment upon them. And that will take care of those who have dishonored me and dishonored my prophet and seeking to kill these. So I didn't want to leave that too quickly. All right, chapter 12 and verse 7. What are the three descriptions that help us know how God viewed his people? Even with his judgment coming upon them, he now switches and pivots a little bit. That in doing so, he's forsaken whom? Well, he's forsaken my house. Now that could be his temple. That's where the presence of God is among his people. Or it could be his family, because he now gives us two more. He said, they are my heritage. Now that's not the temple anymore. So this says, they're my family. I walk in the midst of them because my presence is there in Jerusalem with the temple. So I don't just throw out the house not being the temple. It is earlier in this study this morning. Very much so, the temple, sacrifices. But here he says, this is my house, my people, my family. And what does it mean? What's connected with they're my heritage? How is his people connected that way? Does God need an inheritance? No. But he gave them an inheritance, and those are the people he selected to have an inheritance. They had an inheritance of a land that I've given them. They're my heritage. They're the legacy of my grace and my love and my love for them. You're my heritage. Not that I need an inheritance. No, you're my heritage. You're the people that have inherited the blessings from me. That's the one you're going against. And he also says what? They're beloved of my soul. I love them. I love them. And I am going to deliver them into the hand of her enemies. You don't love me. Well, what have I done bad to you? I gave you a land. I told you it's going to be, I give it to you without strings attached, but you're going to have to, in order to keep it, you're going to have to stay in it and serve me. And you are my people, my heritage, my house. And there again is, on one side, God is saying, this is what you mean to me, but he's bringing judgment upon them. And Jesus could look and realize a rich man, a young rich ruler, he loved him, but he lacked something, and he's not going to enter the kingdom of heaven because he put riches above everything. And God can love those he sends to hell. Just mark it. I love God. And how can he send his people to hell? Well, the people who worship him and with their voice and their heart is far from him. That he still loved them in order to save them from their sins, he'll cast them aside. He'll cast them away. And that's God's perspective. I want to be able to see the judgment from God's perspective. And I said, you don't love me anymore. I sure did. I loved you enough to give my son to die for you, and you served me for a few years. What happened? I kept my end of the covenant, and you just cast away into destruction. So there is indeed my heritage become unto me as a lion in the forest. There's that idea, you want to run away. He had turned her voice against me, therefore I have indeed hated her. I have hated her. And is my heritage unto me a speckled bird of prey, or the birds of prey around about? As he bring the beasts of the field, they devour people. Many shepherds have destroyed my vineyard. They've trodden my portion underfoot that I've given them. They have made my present portion a desolate wilderness. They've made it a desolation. It mourneth unto me, being desolate. The whole land is made desolate, because no man layeth it to heart. Destroyers are come upon all the heights in the wilderness, for the sword of Jehovah devoureth them, and the one to the end of the land to the other. Jeremiah is feeling this pain that's going to happen to them. They have sown wheat, they have reaped thorns, they have put themselves in pain and profit nothing. And ye shall be ashamed of your fruits because of the fierce anger of Jehovah. Jeremiah is weeping for them. You've been told don't pray for them when they cry. But he's weeping for them. And that was important to him. Okay, I don't know how much more time we have. Thank you. What does that say about influence? Let's look at verses 14 through 17. Therefore pray not for this people, as we saw in chapter 11 in verse 14. Now we come to chapter 12, verse 14. Thus said Jehovah against all mine evil neighbors that touch the inheritance which I have caused my people Israel to inherit. So there's his inheritance, because he gave them an inheritance. Now he's going against the enemies. Thank you. Like Egypt, Assyria, all the nations against him. Behold, I will pluck them up from off their land, and will pluck up the house of Judah from among them. But listen to this. And it shall come to pass that after I've plucked them up, I will return and have compassion on them. This is just discipline time. They're being disciplined by their father, who loves them. And hopefully their minds change. But now he's speaking to the enemies of his people. And that's what's significant here, I think, in the question I'm asking. And he says, and it shall come to pass in verse 16, if they will diligently learn the ways of my people, to do what? To swear by my name, as Jehovah liveth. Fulfill your promises. He's not condemning swearing. He's condemning forswearing. He's condemning not following through your promises. This is what my people do in the Old Testament. You swear by my name, as Jehovah liveth, even as they taught my people to swear by whom? By Baal. Then shall they be built up in the midst of my people. But if they will not hear, then I will pluck up that nation, plucking up and destroying it, saith Jehovah. What does this say about influence? What had the nations done to God's people who know better? What are they doing? We're swearing to Baal. We're swearing by our local God, or we're swearing by the God of the nations around us. And when they need to swear by my name only, And so there is the influence of doing that which is evil that's going to cause them to be plucked up. But God said, I'm going to bring them back. And whose influence is now intact? My people truly being my people. And they will be teaching the nations about them to swear by my name. They'll be built up in the midst of my people, but if they don't want to serve me, I will destroy that nation. We can have an evil influence and we can have a godly influence. And through the discipline that's coming to them, hopefully the people's mind will be changed and they will in turn be swearing by Jehovah's name again instead of Baal. And they will be built up and the people will be in the midst of them encouraged to do that which is right too. And that's what we're doing under our new covenant, trying to influence people in our community, seeing the lives that we live. And our actions have a great impact upon how we influence people around us. And I hope we'll keep that in mind. Any questions on that part? I'd like to get into the girdle thing, but I don't know if we have time. Let's get into it. 2 minutes, okay. What significance is there in Jeremiah wearing the linen girdle? Now, I'm assuming you have read this. Put that around the loins, of course, that would they bring up their coats and their long garments and where they could run, gird up their loins. So loins and girdle was there. But he tells them to put it on, and he tells them to take it where? The river, the Euphrates River. So he had to dig it up, so he put it in the dirt. Don't get it wet at the Euphrates River, but dig it. He had to go dig it up, and what happened when he dug it up? It was marred. It was ruined. What? He brings to the people. So what was the application? That those people have been marred by the influence of the Assyrians on the Euphrates River. That was connected with the Euphrates River. These nations had influenced them. And while a girdle could be used, very important to have as far as the garments, that indeed we wear it close to, people wear it close to their loins, and it had a function. It can be marred. And he's trying to show Assyria that you're trying to get comfort from, or from the nations around Mesopotamia. You're trying to go get them for comfort and protection. They marred you. That influence marred you, and I think that's what he's talking about there. And we can discuss that some more next time. But thank you for being here and your comments.